In 1988, the two candidates for President of the United States were Vice President George H. W. Bush and Michael Dukakis. Reagan was finishing his second term as president and could not run again. Toward the end of his presidency in October 1988, Ronald Reagan had an approval rating of 60%, while just 30% approved. Bush was running primarily on continuing Reagan's policies, but he was initially not as warmly received as Reagan had been. Dukakis was initially ahead in the polls, which caused a group not directly involved with Bush's campaign to take matters into their own hands. Nowadays, the group would be called a political action committee, but at the time, this was unheard of.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered.
What the ad calls weekend passes are furloughs. The furlough program allowed prisoners sentenced to life in prison to have weekends outside the prison as incentives for good behavior. This program was designed to reduce the violent behavior of those who felt they had nothing to lose because they had already been sentenced to life in prison. Dukakis continued the policy of furloughs in his state, but was not the one to start it. The ad makes it appear as if the policy was Dukakis' creation, rather than something he had inherited. The policy was frowned upon by death penalty advocates. Using the face of Willie Horton to represent Dukakis' softness on crime was guaranteed to inflame racist sentiments among Reagan supporters who Bush wanted to win over. Willie Horton is black and has a beard and an afro. He looks like a stereotypical criminal element as might be imagined by racist white folk. He is not smiling in the photo. His eyes aren't opened all the way. There's no background and only his face is showing, resembling a mugshot. It seems they chose a photo to make him look intimidating and tap into racist fears.
A boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly.
The way the script in the ad is developed and the ad is spoken so quickly, it gives the audience the impression that Willie Horton killed the boyfriend of the couple he attacked while on furlough. It flashes the word stabbing across the screen in big letters after you hear that he committed a murder by stabbing earlier. It also flashes the words kidnapping and raping across the screen to drive home the point that this was an especially heinous crime. The rape of a white woman by a black man had for centuries been used to incite racism and racial fears.
Raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
The end of the ad shows a picture of Michael Dukakis and says, "Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime." The ad drives home its central point, which is the idea that Governor Dukakis was soft on crime. This was compounded later in the campaign when he was asked about the death penalty during his second debate with Bush. The question asked would he support the death penalty if his wife was the victim of rape and murder. His campaign staff had rehearsed with him to respond to such a question with, "I know what it's like to be the victim of a crime. I'm on the side of victims." But instead he went off script and came across cold and uncaring by simply replying that he'd opposed the death penalty all his life and that he hadn't seen evidence that it was a deterrent to crime. The Willie Horton ad has a long-lasting legacy. Its most recent run of going viral came from comparisons to an ad Trump released a week before the 2018 midterms, featuring a cop killer named Luis Bracamontes. Many outlets compared the ad to the infamous Willie Horton ad, as both used blatant racism to attack the Democrats as soft on crime.